Hello, good day, morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone. Welcome to the Game Jams for Libraries, What They Are, and Why Should I Host One webinar, presented today by Darren Edwards of the BCP Council, Ash Green, Goldsmiths Library at the University of London, and Stella Wisdom at the British Library. My name is George Bergstrom, and I'm the Southwest Regional Coordinator for the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I'll be the host and question moderator today. I would also like to thank the Games and Gaming Roundtable of the American Library Association for co-sponsoring this webinar today. I'd like to start off the webinar with a few announcements. To register for other webinars or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. The session is 1 hour, so you will get 1 LEU for today. If you're watching the archived recording of this webinar, the instructions on how to obtain your LEU are available in the video's description on YouTube. Or you can find those instructions on the ISL's continuing education site under the LEU policies. I would now like to turn the presentation over to Darren, Ash, and Stella.
Thanks, George. I'm assuming handing over to me, I'm going first. So thanks for inviting me to speak at this event. I'm just going to share my screen. So can everyone see my slides? Yep, excellent. So I've got a bit of a pun on my first slide. So great to be here. Sorry, I can't see your faces, but I'm delighted to speak at this webinar. I'm Stella Wisdom. I'm a digital curator at the British Library. You may think, why is there a jar of jelly here? But that's because us Brits call it jam. So whenever we talk about game jams, we do like to kind of often have a pun on jam, especially on muffins and scones. But I'm not going to be talking about the jam that you spread on toast. We're going to be talking about kind of game jams. So what are they? And I've just put a photo here from a Wikimedia Games Jam event. So I'm sure many of you know game jams are like hackathons. People come together for a defined period of time. They can take place on person or online or both, around a theme that's revealed at the start of the jam. Often there can be a broader theme and then like a secret sub-theme revealed at the start of a jam. And there's a global community of engaged game makers, many amateur game makers who build and share and play each other's games. So they've been going for quite a long time. I've not gone into the history of game jams. There's a bit of debate about which was the first game jam, but they've been going for quite a while now. And are pretty well established, and most people have heard of Global Game Jam, which takes place in January each year, with lots of organisations participating in Global Game Jam. So I'm going to be a bit indulgent with my presentation, and I'm going to have a little bit of a diversion, because you might be thinking, well, how did the British Library start getting involved in game jams? And I'm just going to give a little bit of history of how that happened. But for me, it didn't start off with a game jam. It started off with a student competition called Off the Map. And this was a competition that I started in kind of 2012, 2013, looking at how British Library's digitised collections could be reused creatively. And how they could engage with new audiences. And I wanted to create an opportunity for students in the UK to showcase their game making talents to the creative industries and help them find jobs. And it all started because I went to a digital preservation conference in 2012, where over lunch someone showed me an interactive environment of Roslin Chapel, which is a chapel in Scotland. People here, if you've read the Da Vinci Code, you might not want to admit to that, but this is people often know about Roslin Chapel from the Da Vinci Code. It's a kind of really quirky historic building in the UK, but some students had made a virtual explorable interactive Roslin Chapel, and during the lunch break of this conference someone showed me, and it was like, look, would the British Library be interested in organising a competition to make video games and interactive environments with students? Look what's possible. And I was so intrigued. That's what kind of started the Off the Map competition. I went back, spoke to my fellow curators in the library, and we selected maps from the British Library's collections to be the themes for this Off the Map competition. So I'm just going to show you some of these kind of digitised maps and views. This is an image of the original London Bridge, which is not in London anymore. It's moved. So this was a medieval bridge, but this scene is from the 17th century, from before the Great Fire. It's really, really detailed. You can see the heads on spikes, and this is a map from later in the 17th century, but this shows the area of London that was destroyed by the Great Fire of London. So we'd picked a theme. One of the themes of the first off the map competition was London before and after the Great Fire of London, and we selected British Library kind of maps and views to inspire the students and for the students to use in their game making processes in this competition. I'm not, in the interest of time, and because I don't want to hog the whole hour, I'm not going to play a video, but if you want to see a fly through of the winning entry from the first off the map competition, this was made by a team of students called Pudding Lane Productions, and there's great fly through of their game on YouTube. They basically created an explorable London before the Great Fire. It's pretty vast, it's very, very detailed, and it was clever how they made it. They made modular buildings of different layers of upper stories, middle stories, and lower stories to create lots of different street environments, and this got some traction, and it made my colleagues at the library think, oh, this kind of project where game making projects in libraries, that this is of interest. I'd been keeping it a bit quiet, but it appeared on BBC Click. I don't know whether you get BBC Click. That's the BBC's technology news program. It featured on that program, and it got quite a decent amount of press. So that's kind of what started my journey. And I did want to mention that because I don't think the British Library would have been involved in running game jams had it not been for the off the map competition. But the off the map competition had its limitations because it was purely for students in the UK. So that's limited participation. So the next part of this journey is when Ash came to me and told me about an online reading club that was a kind of global collaboration, especially with libraries in Australia, so New South Wales and Australia. And what was interesting about this online reading club, it was called Read, Watch, Play, and there was definitely an emphasis on kind of games and films as much as books. And they had a monthly theme with kind of readings, games to play, films to watch, all around a theme. And so Ash pitched to me, would we want to do a game jam linked in with the Read, Watch, Play? And I was like, sure, let's go for it. And so we did our first library game jam, and this was back in 2017. It was Odyssey Jam. There was a water theme, so we thought Odyssey would be a good classical theme to go with that. My interest in this was to promote a vast collection of book illustrations from the British Library's collection. So we're talking a massive collection of 68,000 volumes of books, mostly from the 19th century, mostly in English. These were digitized in partnership with Microsoft quite a while ago. In a nutshell, Microsoft thought they were going to be competing with Google Books, but the project was terminated partway through, so more books were due to be digitized. But when the partnership ended, Microsoft were like, the British Library can do whatever they want with the digitized images so far. All of the books were out of copyright, so the library made a decision to release these digitized books as public domain, and so basically it was a collection that was ripe for creative reuse. However, at that point, or it was PDFs of the books. So I just also wanted to mention mechanical curators. So my ex-colleague Ben Osteen, who now works for Getty Images, Ben worked out a very clever algorithmic method of digitally snipping the book illustrations from the digitized books, and it was these digitally snipped book illustration images that we wanted to promote in our game jam projects. But I just wanted to mention this because before that moment, before Ben kind of reverse engineered the AutoXML to kind of digitally snip the images, it would have been much more complicated to encourage people to creatively reuse all the PDFs of the full books. But with the images, there was a lot more that could be done. Ben created social media accounts to post these random book illustration images. So he started off what we called the mechanical curator. There was a Tumblr account, a Twitter account. Sadly, these bots are not live anymore since Ben left the British Library. But one of his legacies is we put all of these over 1 million book illustrations up onto the British Library's Flickr channel, and they're there. Many of them are tagged and categorized into different thematic albums. We've got all sorts of things, flora, fauna, ghosts, you name it. There's thematic collections of book illustrations, and it was in the jams that we wanted to promote these images. Just going to mention, not just jams, I've been involved in kind of promoting other creative reuse of this collections. I think if you'd have said there would be a British Library art installation at Burning Man Festival in Nevada before we released the book illustrations on Flickr, we would have thought that seemed a crazy idea. But by releasing these public domain images, that did indeed happen. So artist David Normal made these vast light boxes of collages. He'd made these kind of huge collages, hand watercolored them at vast scale, displayed them at Burning Man. He then brought the Burning Man art installation. This is at the front of the British Library. A couple of years ago, we had the Burning Man art installation here at the British Library. We also had pop bands and folk bands make music videos using the book illustrations. I've not got time to play the video, but I have put the kind of YouTube link here. So the Impatient Sisters video, Hey There Young Sailor, is just wonderful and uses the book illustrations in their kind of animated collage. It's really magical, and kind of lower tech ways as well. So I wanted to just kind of give a shout out to Magical Kingdom. So by putting these book illustrations online, under public domain, so people can do whatever they want with them. It encourages, say, craftspeople to make things, sell them on Etsy, do what they want. And Magical Kingdom was kind of an Etsy store making brooches and badges using these illustrations too. So back to the jams. I've gone off the map for a moment, but I'm getting back on with things. So we held Odyssey Jam as our first experiment. It had 10 entries. I suppose that's not bad for our first jam, and not all the entries used the book illustrations, but some of them did. So these are up on the itch.io page for Odyssey Jam, and games including 108 suitors, and no one used the book illustrations. So building on the confidence from Odyssey Jam, the next year we did Gothic Novel Jam, and it was the anniversary of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So we thought this was the perfect opportunity for a Gothic Novel Jam initiative, and we kind of opened our scope here. We encouraged people to not just create games, but to think broader than that and think of stories and poetry and films and soundscapes and all sorts of things. And again, we wanted to promote the book illustrations that were up on Flickr. This had a really good response rate, and we had 46 entries. They were international entries. We were really impressed that we'd had entries from Australia and America and France. So this was not just a kind of a UK project. And there was some really interesting entries, and if you want to kind of have a play of one of these that used the book illustrations to really good effect, I just wanted to kind of flag up as a globe brings out a haze, and you can kind of see how the book illustrations have been used in this interactive game here. But there were sometimes more subtle uses, and there's lots of kind of border images and kind of typography, and so the Ladies' Book of Decency, which I personally really love because it's a kind of spoof of a kind of etiquette manual, but this is going to be a bit of a spoiler, told if you're a lady werewolf, but they've used the kind of the borders from the digitized book illustrations to give this kind of historic feel to their game. So even though this is kind of work of interactive fiction, it's got this kind of oldie worldy look because they've used the kind of borders and used the illustrations in that way. So they've been the jams that I've been involved in at the British Library, but I've been really pleased to see other libraries holding their own game jams, and during the COVID lockdown, Leeds Libraries in Yorkshire in the UK, they held an online jam around novels that shaped our world. So the novels that shaped our world was a BBC list of 100 novels, and public libraries in the UK were kind of doing all sorts of events and programming celebrating these novels that were, like I say, had been made it into the top 100 of what people thought as important novels. And Leeds developed a really interesting program and worked with many community partners on their jam. So they worked with their local museum, and they worked with a local board gaming club, Cards or Die, and organised various events, including a really cool online tilt brush performance with a VR artist, Rosie Summers, who basically did. It was almost like watching ballet, watching her draw Narnia in tilt brush, but it was just really well thought out, and working with this community partner. So working with Anne from Cards or Die, Anne delivered 4 workshops for Leeds libraries, and basically going through the methods of looking at how you can create your games, looking at kind of all sorts of things, from cooperative games, solo games, making game worlds. But I just wanted to kind of flag up, when planning your game jams, do look out at what community partners you have, whether they're kind of large partners or kind of experienced individuals, board game clubs. There could be a wealth of talent in your local communities who you could collaborate with on your jams. And I just wanted to share the itch.io page for the Leeds Libraries Games Jam. Many of the games made actually were analog games, so I should also mention your game jams can produce all sorts of things. It just doesn't have to be digital games. It can be card games, it can be board games, it could be all sorts of things, and I appreciate that that's harder to share with people online if someone's made a card game, possibly, but it's creativity comes in all shapes and forms, and I'm sure Ash and Darren will talk about this. But before I go, I just wanted to kind of flag up a Bitsy game. This is a virtual British library made in Bitsy by my colleague Julia Carla Rossi. So even though I can't welcome you through the doors of the British Library today, if you did want a kind of virtual explore of the British Library and to learn some facts about the library, then and also if you want to, if you don't know anything about Bitsy and wanted to kind of explore a Bitsy experience, I just wanted to flag up the British Library Simulator, as it's called, as a way that you can kind of visit virtually the British Library. But that's it from me. Thank you for listening, and I will hand over to Ash.
Great, thanks for that, Stella. Gosh, I'd forgotten we started off in 2017 doing this. Okay, just what I'm going to do is, can you all see that screen?
Yeah, we can see it, Ash.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you as well.
Can somebody unmute their mic and just tell me if they can hear me, please?
We can hear you, Ash.
Okay. Oh, you could. Okay, right. I'll do that again. We know what the technical problems I've had. So yeah, I just wants to be sure. Okay, try that again. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about the sort of tools that you can actually use to make games. And the way that I love making games. I'm a bit of a coder. I'm not an expert coder, but what I like is really giving other people the opportunity to make games if they're not coders, especially. Because there's an idea. Well, if you want to make a game, it's got to be like a AAA, multi-million-pound project. You've got to be, a really strong coder and all that. But I don't believe in that. I think anybody can make a game. Anybody's entitled to make a game. Kind of doesn't matter what it looks like. If you make it, you enjoy making it. That is great. So what I'm going to show you now is a few game making tools. I'm going to show this really quickly. So a few game making tools that are free. Don't have to pay for them. They're browser based, so you can make your games on the web. They're easy to use. You can save them as HTML. So the key thing about saving them as HTML is you make your game in one of these tools, save as HTML, and you can just upload it straight to itch.io, and you don't have to do any fiddling about it. And there's no coding involved at all. You can do coding with some of these things, some of these tools, but the key thing for me is that many of these tools are just kind of no code based. So I'll share this presentation with you as well later. So I've got key links in there, but this is just like a handful of what you call tiny tools, games that tools that you can use to make little games. And at the bottom of the slide, there's a list of kind of even more. So it's not just like tools for making games; it's kind of tools for all different sorts of things. So my first thing is Bitsy, and Stella just mentioned this a couple of minutes ago. The British Library Simulator. I love Bitsy. I love it to bits. It's one of the tools that kind of got me back into game making after a bit of a lull in that experience, because I just kind of got fed up with being not the best programmer in the world, not getting things to work. Bitsy itself is about making 8-bit early 1980s style storytelling, and on the screen you can see that the main thing when Bitsy first came out, what you could do was you could create tiles. So these are things like the yellow bricks around the screen there, sprites, so you've got a little green cat there, items, so you've got a little cup of tea there, and what you can do with the sprites is you bump into them and it triggers some dialogue, and we can see on the right hand side we've got a bit of dialogue there. It says you found a nice warm cup of sovereign tea, and that's linked to the tea item, which is actually up on the screen here, and that's what you can do with items is you can collect them, and as you go through the game you can collect more things as you're setting it up, and it can trigger other things. So like you might collect 10 cups of tea and you finish the game, or you might collect 10 cups of tea, it gives you extra strength and you can do something. You can have a battle with a big monster or something like that. You can also change the colour of it as well. So that's Bitsy. I will actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing. I'm just going to quickly try and go in and show you Bitsy as well. I'm not going to talk now because we've had problems with technology before, so I will probably go quiet, but I'm just going to show you what's kind of going on with Bitsy. Okay, so that was Bitsy. I'm going to go back to this. So that's Bitsy. Can you still hear me? If somebody could unmute their mic and just say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Right, so these are some of my favourite Bitsy games. There's loads out there. It's become so popular because it's such an easy tool to use. and it's taken off in a massive way. So I think there's like a few thousand games on itch.io. So if you're kind of looking for a variety of Bitsy games, just take a look on itch.io and type in Bitsy and see what comes up. Right, next one, we've got Twine, and Twine is more about creating the equivalent of your old, you know, those old choose your own adventure text stories from like the 1980s, like the Steve Jackson books, where you go, you know, you come across a dragon, do you say hello to it or do you fight it? You make your option, you know, if you choose to fight it, go to page 76. If you choose to make friends with it, go to page 21, you turn the page. And that's the equivalent, Twine is the digital equivalent of that as well. So the way that it works is that you've got these really simple text boxes. When you first open up Twine, it opens up like the first passage, which is blank. You double click on it, it opens up this bit where it says first passage. It's got like the little wordy, you know, sort of word processing type little functions like you know, centering, text styles, colors, things like that. You type in your text there. So, and the way it works is that you type in a bit of text, and if you want to kind of do a branching link, you put that text into double square brackets. So we can see we've got doctor and we've got witch here on this first passage. And when you type something in square brackets and you press space after that, it will automatically create a new passage, which is linked to the first passage. So you don't have to have any kind of worries about, oh, right, you know, I've got to make sure this passage links to that one, links to that one. And then you just kind of continue creating your interactive fiction in that way, just by building up these passages. And it's really easy to use. And kind of what it comes out as once you've kind of published a file. So this is like a little game, you know, it's a really, really simple bit of narrative fiction that I created in, it was probably 5 minutes, where it's got, you know, first passage, first option is doctor, and the second option is witch, and then from going on from which you've got she whips up a herbal remedy for you, do you drink it, and then you've got yes or no, and kind of what's the result of that. And when you publish it, what it looks like is this screen on the right, and that looks, it does look really plain, but you know, when you think about looking at a book, they're quite plain as well on page, you know, it's words on a bit of paper. But what you can do as well is you can add in, you can style the kind of the output of your Twine, if you know about doing that, using CSS and other kind of web-based trickery. You can add in images, it's fairly straightforward in Twine itself, and audio as well. So you can really, you know, at a basic level, you can kind of just get in there, you can do this stuff, you can write your story, you know, without the hassle of, you know, thinking, oh gosh, you know, what should this bit of code be? You don't have to bother with code, and you can publish it, and then kind of once you're happy with that, you can actually go on styling it. So that's Twine. Then we've got Imagem, and this, I only discovered this about a month ago, and I really like it because I've been looking for something that will allow me to create like point and click games really, really quickly and really, really easy without any fuss at all. And I just discovered this, and I thought, oh gosh, this is great. And I might actually use this with British Library Images for the Game Jam in November. And it is really straightforward. You know, what you're seeing on the screen here is on the left-hand side, at the bottom it says choose a file. So you basically just choose an image, upload it, click OK, that's fine. And then what you do is, it's a bit fuzzy here, but it does say add a gate. So the first option on the left, just underneath the candle in the grey, it says add a gate. And basically what you're doing there is you're adding an area on this, the image you've just uploaded, that somebody can click on, and then it will take them to another area, take them to another image. And that's the way it works, is, you know, you add images, and you add areas within those images that people can click on once you run the game, and it will open up another image. So basically what you're doing is you just add in a load of images, add in a load of areas that you can click on, and it just works like that, and it's just so easy, and yeah, it's just great. So in this, I've got two little areas that can be clicked on once you run the game. The bit at the top there, which overly lit up the box with kind of magic-y, mystical vapors. You know, you click that, it takes you to one area, and you click on the other one with the, we've got the bottle outlined here. Click on that, and it takes you to this glass of beer. So there's that. So that's Imagem, and that's just really straightforward. And again, as I say, you know, with all of these things, it's based online. The links are included in the presentation. Once you've made your game, you just download it and it automatically saves a HTML file uploaded to it. Next up, Flixie. Again, this is it's similar to IGM because it's all based around images that you click on. But what you can do here is you can draw images, and it depends on how good an artist that you are. It can come out looking like sort of like MS Paint. But there's some good artists out there who can do really great stuff. And what happens with this is that once you set up like these different scenes, so rather than just it being focused on like one image on a scene, on the left hand side here, you can see we've got like a candle and a load of books, and that's actually made up of different images. So it's made up of separate book images, all layered together, and a candle image as well. And then you've got things like these faces at the bottom right here of this one with the hearts for eyes. They're basically duplicates of one image, and it's got like a little scroll at the bottom of that image as well. So that's a separate image as well. And then on the next screen, like the middle screenshot here, if you basically add your images here, you can either draw them or you can actually import them as well and tweak them. So you don't have to be a great artist, and if you can't, if you find you're not getting on well with the drawing tools in Flixie, you can import your images. And the way it works, that you assemble your game based on these images, and what you do for each image is you say, okay, well, when the person's playing this game, if they click this image, then either go to another scene. So those scenes are the ones on the left there, where it's got candle on the books, Flixie 2, the faces with the heart for eyes. So you can say, right, click on this image and then it goes to one of those scenes, or click on this image and it opens up some text as well. So you can see it's slightly more advanced than imaging because it allows you to add text as well. But it's really straightforward as well to make a game in Flixie as well. Then we've got Flick Game. Flick Game, again, it's a similar sort of thing, but it's point and click. But what you're doing is you're really limited to a set of colors to draw your images. But again, if you're an artist like me, it ends up looking like this, which is it's not fantastic, but I've got a style of my own. So what you do is you create these images using the different color palettes at the color palette at the bottom. You select a color, you can select your size of pen by looking at the circles at the top. And the only other option is that it's got the paint bucket fill, which is, you select a color and it will click on the screen, it'll fill the whole screen with color until it hits a different color. And then there's the the delete button as well. And the way this works is that, I realize I've got like 1 minute left. The way this works is that, you add your colors, you start drawing something, and underneath each color at the bottom of the screen, you can click on a box and it will open up a box from like a number from 1 till 16. And on the left hand side, you can see you've got numbers 1 to 16. And what you're doing there, you're saying, okay, like, so for example, with the orange color, it's got number 2 on that. So you're saying, okay, when we run the game and the player clicks on the orange color, it will take them to scene number 2. And scene number 2, you can see on the right hand side, is the tickle scene, and you can tell it's scene number 2 because it's got the 2 highlighted in white next to it. So what you're basically doing is you're going through, you're drawing your scenes with different colors and saying, all right, well, if somebody when people are playing this game, if they click on this certain color, then it'll take them to this particular scene. And then so where we've got, you can see from here, I've got number 3 under green and red. So basically, that green and red thing in the middle of the body, that's meant to be like an eye. So what we're basically saying is, when you click on the eye, either the red or the green bit, it opens up scene number 3, and number 3 is the bit that says, the little scene that says, I see you. And you can there've been some really, really interesting things that have been created by people who've got a better, art style than me. They've invested a lot of time in these things. So if you search for Flick Game, you'll find lots of different games around that as well. And finally, the only other thing I was going to show you is Tiny Choice. And this is basically like Twine, but it's a lot smaller and it's a lot more uncomplicated. And the way that, the way that you make your games in Twine, again, it goes back to the idea of choose your own adventure. Click on this link and it'll take you to the passage. You write it as text. So we can see on the left-hand side, we've got a start box. It's got equals, start equals. Where it's got equals and then a bit of text, then equals after it, it means it's a new passage. So we've got one passage that says start here, another one which is called Cowfield, another one called Cowfield 2, another one called Sheepfield, and another one called Sheepfield 2 on the left-hand side. And in between like start and the Cowfield there, we've got a bit of text. So you can see the equivalent of that on the right-hand side as well. So on the left, it says you stand between a field of sheep and a field of cows. You wonder what the cows are up to, but you can't figure it out. And then underneath that, you can see go to the cows, hyphen, right arrow, and then Cowfield, and then same thing under under that, which says go to the sheep, hyphen, arrow, Sheepfield. And basically what that is saying is, it's saying go to the cows, that's a bit of text that is going to appear as a hypertext link, and hyphen right arrow, and the text after that is Cowfield. And what it's saying is basically Cowfield is the next passage that you go into. So when you click on go to the cows, it pops down onto Cowfield and it says the cows are rolling about, and then underneath that it's got more bits and bobs under that. So so I think that is kind of me done. So I'll hand you over to Darren, and hopefully you could hear all that as well.
Oh, sounded fine, Ash. Okay, let me just share my screen. Which one do I want? That one. Okay, so I'm going to talk specifically about the International Games Month Jam, which we're going to be running later this year. So in previous years of International Games Day and Games Week, we've had events that allow libraries around the globe to participate together. Those have included things like the Global Gossip Game or the Minecraft Hunger Games, and it was those kind of events that I wanted to kind of emulate, that allowed libraries to connect with each other, or library users to connect each other. So as long as the technology works, I'm just going to try to play a short clip of Scott Nicholson, who made a video for this anniversary year of International Games Month, and it has some interesting ideas that connect with the Game Jam.
Libraries are places of play, whether that play is through reading or through games or through creation, and I'm excited to see how libraries continue to engage with games and with patrons into the future. If I had one suggestion, it would be find ways to help your patrons create games, and then find ways to share those games with others. Because that form of creation, it's a way that we share our stories, we share our concepts, and we're able to share and play with each other. So continue having fun and continue playing at your library, and I'll see you maybe in another 10 years, perhaps with a little more gray hair, if that's possible. Anyway, take care, and I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
So the International Games Month Jam runs throughout November, and we're encouraging participants to make games connected to one or both of the Jam themes. So those are the connections we make through reading and Happy Anniversary. So the role we see libraries taking here is to enable groups and individuals to make and share games. Typically, as a library service, you wouldn't be joining the Jam yourself, but just enabling your patrons to do so. So the Game Jam is basically a framework from which you can develop your events and connect those to the creation of games. So we're hosting the Jam on Itch, which we've talked about a little bit before. Itch is a games hosting platform which is really commonly used amongst indie digital game developers and also indie role-playing game designers. So Itch allows users to share or sell games, and for our purposes it's really really perfect because it has the kind of pre-existing infrastructure for running a games jam. So individual participants or groups can upload their games to the platform. So you won't need to set up an account for the library unless you really want to. You can just signpost your users to upload games there. The terms and conditions of it do require users to be over 18. So if you're running events for minors, they would need a parent or a guardian to share games for them. There isn't any requirement for the games that you create during your events to be shared on Itch. And if you're running an event for younger children, probably not going to be the most suitable place for those to be shared. But if you're running something for adults or teens, then maybe they will want to share them on the Game Jam page. So what kinds of games are we accepting in this year's Games Month Jam? Anything, basically. Obviously, computer games and role-playing games are the area that Itch primarily serves. However, we'll accept live games, puzzles, educational games, as long as there's some kind of digital component. For example, a print and play board or a rules document or print and play cards. You'll be able to share those games through Itch. So I'm going to quickly just switch over to showing you Itch as a platform, and then I'm going to talk about the kind of events that you might want to be running alongside the Jam. So this is the Itch platform. Users can register up in the top right hand corner. I already have an account, so I'll just quickly log in. And this is the page which you get as a creator when you want to upload games. To find the game jams, you can go to the link at the top on the left, and you can see there's a huge number of different jams here on the calendar. There's a huge variety of different things. The International Games Month Jam isn't up here yet because it's too far ahead, but we can take a quick look at that page, which has got information for participants, information for libraries, and we'll be updating this with frequently asked questions as we go. There's a community for people who are participating to chat with each other, and Ash and I will be moderating that. There will also be, once the Game Jam starts, there'll be a link to the submissions, which you can't see on here at the moment. But if I just switch to a Game Jam which is running, you can see the submissions page has a list of all the games, what platforms they're available on, and also has for physical games, it has tags for those. And that list of games will remain beyond the end of the jam. So just heading back to my slides. So we obviously, game making events are probably the main thing which you're going to be thinking about in terms of events to run. These could be working at a variety of levels. So a public library might want to connect your regular craft activities, children's craft activities of making board games, or perhaps digital coding groups to a digital games creation session. Academic libraries perhaps engage your staff and students in making educational games. There's something around referencing and citations would fit with the theme that we've got, one of the themes that we've got today. And these events offer a wide range of learning opportunities for participants, from teamwork development to project management skills, prototyping skills and play testing. And if you didn't want to run something yourself, then networking events are another opportunity that you could use. So you could have panel discussions for game designers if you've got a local game design community. Something that I ran in the photo here is a demo session for local games designers, where they were showcasing their developments of games from really early prototypes through to published games. Or perhaps you could get game developers to demonstrate their design process, stream their design process if they're a digital creator. These events remove some of the need for you to kind of do everything yourselves and allow you to work with external partners, which is obviously something which is really useful if you're working within limited staffing or budgets. Another thing which the Games Jam will allow you to do, like the British Library has done, is reusing public domain or Creative Commons assets. So this is going to be of particular interest if, like me, you manage a local studies collection and you have historic maps or images in your collection that you could use within games. If you don't have your own collection of resources, there's obviously a range of institutions that do have resources that you could use. So we've already talked about the British Library collection, but most national libraries have some kind of open source image collection. So Library of Congress has freely available images, along with the Smithsonian welcoming image collection. So I'll try to put together a list of sites with free to use resources, and then those can be shared along with the links that Ash shared on the International Games Month page. Finally, games aren't just made by game designers. So depending on your library's focus, you might want to lean into other adjacent arts. So I also manage a specialist music library along with our local studies collection. So I could run something connected to music and sound design in games, or you could focus on game art, graphic design around rule books, packaging, or even just games adjacent craft activities. Those would all fit in with the idea. You could run sessions connected to the more business side of the games industry, things around intellectual property or entrepreneurial skills. And if you think creatively, basically there are whatever library you're in, there'll be some way to connect your events to the Games Jam. So overall, I think I'd like to think of the Jam as an opportunity for you to encourage your users to get creative, to make games, to make those connections with the library and other library users and other library users around the world. So the main goal of the Game Jam is to make those connections between you and your communities and make connections between libraries around the world. So I think that is me. And I've got a little bit of time for questions.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of the presenters, and I will encourage everyone to put additional questions in the chat. I do have a few that came in while you all were speaking. Some of them may have been answered, but I'll go ahead and read them all just to make sure we all have a chance to address them. So early on, we had a question about what engine or system did they use to create that environment? And I think it was the off the map winner when that question came in.
Yeah, so I put this in. So the Pudding Lane Productions virtual 17th century London was made with the CryEngine. What I should mention is this was made kind of 10 years ago, so game engines can change fast. And I also wanted to mention that these were kind of games design students on university courses. So compared to the tools that Ash has shown, you do need some kind of training and skill level with that kind of software. But if you have got colleges, universities, game studios, people in your community who might want to participate in your jam, and they have got people who can maybe do workshops teaching these things. I am not a games maker by any stretch of the imagination, but when Off the Map was running, I went and did a 2-day CryEngine workshop just to try and understand it, and I managed to make some progress during that. So I would urge people to investigate the tools that Ash was showing, but Pudding Lane was made with CryEngine, and that's kind of why it's got that kind of realistic kind of 3D game.
Great.
Can I
And
say something there? Sorry. Stella mentioned about getting in touch with like local game developers and game development companies. That's a really good idea. When I was working in public libraries, I was based in Guildford, and that's got a huge number of game companies like Electronic Arts and just like AAA game companies. And what I found is I could just go to them and say, oh, we're interested in doing these game things. Are you interested in doing something with us? And they're all, yeah, let's do that. And then we kind of come in and doing workshops and things like that. So I agree with Stella on that. I agree with Stella on a lot of things, but with that, yeah, go and ask your local game developer to help out, and they will gladly do.
perfect. And I think there was discussion of this in the chat, but I will go ahead and ask it if anyone wants to elaborate. So what types of games are they creating? Video games, board games, RPGs? And I know some chat discussion was going on about this one, but is there anything else you all want to add?
I just say for the purposes of the International Games Month Jam, anything's fine. Different jams will have different kind of restrictions on what they accept, but I think that whatever suits your library is what we're going for in terms of International Games Month.
Great. Okay, I'll answer this one since it's right at the bottom of the chat now. Yes, the slides, recordings, and any other materials will all go out at the same time. Okay, so back to the questions I had written down. What kinds of guidance are participants given? I think I have an answer to that, but I will let our panelists jump in first.
So for International Games Month, we are building up the guidance as we're moving towards November. So there will be more and more stuff going up onto the Game Roundtable bit relating to this and on the itch page. This is the first time we've done it, so it's a bit of a trial and error process.
And in general, I think it would be also tied to what your library has available. So yeah, if you just want to say it's there and you encourage your patrons to do it, that could be a program. But if you, as Ash and Stella said, if you have people in your area that you can partner with and bring in programming that does more formal design, that's great as well. Okay. Someone asked, are they given tools for formatting pen and paper games?
I was going to say that this relates a bit to another question about in-person and online jams. So the jams I mentioned, Odyssey Jam, Gothic Novel Jam, and Novels That Shaped Our World were pretty much online jams and online events. So the Leeds Novels That Shaped Our World was meant to be kind of in person, but it happened during COVID lockdowns, and so it was converted to be an online events and an online jam. But I did want to mention at a festival in the UK, Ash did a great Bitsy workshop where we made the games with graph paper and felt tip pens, and we built a Bitsy game. We built it in paper, and then Ash put it together in Bitsy. So you can go for a kind of low tech approach, and then kind of put that together in kind of Bitsy afterwards. Sorry, has that answered the question or not?
I think that's definitely one good answer. Yeah.
And PDFs can be uploaded to Itch. So if people have made card games, board games, and they can have make like a PDF of their analog game, they can attach the PDF to Itch to kind of share details. And if that's like a card game that you can then print out the PDFs and cut out, and then people can make the card games themselves and sharing it that way, that's totally possible too.
Great. And the last question that came in before the end was, are all the platforms that were mentioned free? And I think someone ran down that in the chat, but certainly everything in Ash's presentation was free.
Yeah, some of the ones. Sorry, Ash, I was going to say CryEngine's not free. So some of the ones I mentioned in relation to my off the map competition are not free. So, but certainly, not to interrupt you, Ash. So some of the ones I mentioned relating to non-game jam projects are not free. The CryEngine, they made it freely available for students under an educational license. But yeah, I'll hand over to you, Ash.
Thanks, Stella. Yeah, all the things that I mentioned are free. I mean, that's kind of what I go for. I know kind of, the game developers have put kind of time into making these, but they actually decide to release these things for free. There's a lot of, especially in the indie game development community, there's a lot of people who kind of advocate open source and just kind of things that are not focused on, right, we're going to make a load of money out of this. And yeah, so all those tools I've mentioned there, they're all totally free.
It also, I suppose, in the industry, many of these companies, by making their engines freely available and supporting open source, it means when they're hiring talent, students and people have been able to kind of get experience, make their own games, and they've developed a lot of skills. So often it's in the games industry's interest to make these kind of tools and platforms free, so that they can develop talents that then might want to go and work in the industry and work for their companies.
Great. So I've dropped the request form into the chat for an LEU. So if you need a certificate for today, go ahead and fill out that form. If there are any other questions, go ahead and send those along. I'm just reviewing the chat here. We definitely have at least one person who does game development who's offered up their contact info. So Philip, as long as you're okay, I'll share that when I send out the recording as well for